Hey, so hello and welcome to our final workshop in the Get Transition Ready series. We're going to be talking today about campus food, just knowing how to plan for starting post-secondary school and college, keeping in mind sort of tips on how to stay in range while you're going through 12-hour long days of school and exams and sports and all that kind of stuff. And we're joined by some phenomenal guests today who I'll get to introduce to you in a few minutes. I'm just going to start with our land acknowledgement. So I'm coming to you from Toronto. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And I know that we have people joining us from different areas across Canada, so I always encourage you to go to nativeland.ca to learn more about the territory that you live on and the history of that. Just a quick plug for some of the resources that DHF has to offer for youth who are transitioning out of the pediatric healthcare system and into post-secondary school. We have our Hope Connects peer mentorship program, which matches first and second year students with a mentor who's in university or college or recently graduated, just to help guide you through the ups and downs of managing your blood sugars while also doing post-secondary school. And Rav and Ethan are both two of our phenomenal mentors here today. So if you're interested about that, you can go to our website and fill out our intake form, and then I'll be in touch to match you up with one of our mentors. We also have our new transition guide mobile app, which is an online version of our transition guide. It has information on over 190 colleges and universities across Canada, including accessibility services, on-campus resources, tips from our alumni about sort of how to manage university. And you can search by school or by city, and just all the information's at your fingertips. You don't need to worry about researching it yourself. And finally, we have our Transition in the Kitchen recipe guide, which are simple, easy, healthy recipes with sort of all the carb counts there. They're also celiac friendly or have sort of modifications if you do have celiac. It was put together by our DHF alumni, so it's got easy, healthy recipes. And I think, Rav, you were a part of the process of putting it together. So Rav's seal of approval as well. All of this is available on our website, and you can also join us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn to sort of keep abreast of all the programs and resources and information that we have going on. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and we'll just sort of go around and introduce the guests. So I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Heather Miller. I'm the program director with the Diabetes Hope Foundation. So kind of your first point of contact to get connected to our programs and resources. And Christian works with me, so I'll let you go next, Christian, and then we'll do our guests.
Yeah, my name is Christian, and I've been with DHF for a few months now, purely just kind of providing administrative support wherever I can. So thank you for having me.
And then we're very thankful to be joined by Marsha. So I'll let you introduce yourself quickly, Marsha.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Marsha Feldt. I'm a dietitian. I work at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center. That's at Bayview and Eglinton, Bayview and Lawrence area in Toronto at a hospital. I work in a diabetes education program, and I provide diabetes education to adults. And I've met, obviously, many transitions, students that come along the way, like from university, from high school to university, or wherever you're going off to, discussing in individual sessions mainly. And usually my sessions are like dietitian and nurse together. I'm sure some of you have already met diabetes educators. So it's just a chance. I've been doing that for probably more than 25 years and met many, many people along the way. So it's really great to be here. I also go to hospitals for the kids on transition days. So maybe I've met some of you before, I don't know. But it's really great to be here and talking with the group. Thank you.
Thanks, Marsha. And Rav.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Rav, and I actually received a scholarship from DHF about 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with type 1 when I was 2 years old. I didn't really know anybody who had it, so that's why I love being with DHF, because I've met this great community of people who've been able to, support me as I transition from, being a teenager into an adult and into university life and now the workforce. So a bit about my, I guess, academic background. I studied occupational health and safety at Toronto Metropolitan University, also known as TMU, and I got my HR management certificate from there as well. And I'm really glad to just have this chat today and be with everyone.
So thanks, Rav. And last but definitely not least, Ethan.
Hey everyone, my name's Ethan. It's great to be here. I'm a third year, well, in September, I'll be a third year student at McMaster studying health sciences. I think Rav summed it up perfectly when she talked about DHF. It's such an amazing community, and I always love events like these to meet new people and just hear what you guys have to say about various topics. So again, I'm really excited to be here and meet all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ethan. We'll just kind of get into, it's going to be a kind of an informal conversation with Christian and I just kind of leading it to make sure we touch on all the key points. Focusing on campus food, because as someone living with diabetes, food is kind of always at the back of your mind alongside what your blood sugar is doing. So just some tips on how to get through the first few months on campus and what to ask before you get there to sort of prepare yourself for it. So a big part is planning ahead for your day to make sure that you've got all the food you need on campus. So I'm just wondering if between Marsha, Rav, and Ethan, you can talk a little bit about what you always made sure to have with you, especially for those longer days, and Marsha, sort of keeping in mind what to make sure you have on hand.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind going first. So I first actually went to the University of Ottawa for 2 years, and then I transitioned over to Toronto. So even at both schools, I never had a locker. And I swear I always had like such a heavy backpack when I went to school. And I was, prepared for the apocalypse apparently. And one thing that was a little bit frustrating for me was always like packing food in containers. Even though it did add a lot of like bulk and weight, it is less wasteful. So I do encourage that. In terms of like my low routine, I always had, like 2 juice boxes and some quick snacks on me at all times. And because I was a very stressed out individual at school, having a reusable water bottle was like a huge lifesaver. And I would always like text my siblings, or I would like make a note in my phone saying to like restock on my low supplies, because the days that you don't have what you need are the days you need it the most. I swear that always happens to me. And I'm like, when I reflect back on being in university, I packed a lot of meals out of convenience. So whatever was just like quick and easy. But depending on like what time my classes were at, I could schedule more balanced lunch and dinner to kind of supplement that. And because when I went to Toronto, I used to have an hour commute. So I would always get a family member to pick me up or drop me off to the GO station. So I could let them know like, hey, like I'm out of snacks, I'm out of juice. Can you make sure you have something ready when I come home? And again, adding to my note of, having the heaviest backpack possible, I always carried like a mini medical bag with me, like a cosmetics bag, or I swear sometimes I used to shove things in my glasses case because depending on if I was on MDI or a pump, I'd have some backups in my bag just in case if I needed it. And I always tried my best to make plans in advance to avoid carrying food I didn't eat, or I made sure I had the skills under my belt to look up all the carbs in advance. If there were like late night study sessions, or like everyone's like, hey, let's just like order a pizza. It's easier for some people to agree to that, and then for us, it's kind of like, oh, like should I be doing that? I don't have my parent to tell me what to do, and you have to be able to make those decisions for yourself. And another thing I did was, because I did go to 2 cities, visit 2 cities, I made sure I had a list of all like pharmacies or grocery stores that were nearby. So in case I did need something, or like had to pick up food, I knew kind of where to go. So that was easy for me.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks, Rav.
I'll add on a couple of things to that. In first year, I was on campus, and this past year, as my second year, I was off campus. But I think regardless of those, I think it's always good, as Rav mentioned, to have a sort of baseline few elements in your bag. And those, for me, regardless of the meals that I was going to eat, whether that was ones I brought from home or that I made myself or got on campus, having those low snacks in my bag at all times was definitely very important to me. I had a kind of just bag that I wouldn't really touch at the beginning and end of each day, and obviously restocked it as I needed. But that bag was kind of like the standard juice boxes or, like candy or like whatever I needed in there that I wouldn't really tap into unless I needed it. So I could always make sure it was there. The second part is to ensure you have everything to manage your high and lows. I think part of this comes not only with the food, but also your supplies. So I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later in the panel, but part of that, I guess, bag was also extra pump supplies, whatever that may be, some extra sites. Because while we talk about food, most importantly is also the insulin, right? So making sure that I kind of prepared for the worst case scenario, especially if I knew that there'd be some sports in that day. That was very helpful to have as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Ethan. Marsha, did you have anything you wanted to add or add on to?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously challenging because you're out there on your own. You're kind of, trying to get used to the new flow of the day and, how the schedule could be like bigger and, you're having to go places, or maybe just being casually wanting to spend more time with friends, however it ends up being. But it does sound like, and from what I've heard from other people, carrying your supplies is key, like it's a big thing to do. And you definitely want to have that, sort of even thinking ahead of time, what kind of supplies, like, what do I need? What's going to help me in a pinch? Like, what maybe write it down for yourself. It's almost like a camp list, right? Like the idea that, I kind of know you may already be doing it, but at high school, like with having the locker, now not having the locker, it just makes it a little different, which is okay. But it's nice to be prepared ahead, like you had said. And it can be that you carry snacks with you, like that can be really handy. And we'll talk a little bit more about snacks and things like that. But I like it how, we're not always also ready for this, but it's nice that you're here thinking about it with us because it is definitely something that you kind of want to wrap your mind around to get yourself ready for when you get out there because it can be a very busy full day, from all the things that go on at school.
And I think also too, just sort of knowing where those emergency supplies and supports are. So know where the first aid office is in case you do need something. And also letting your friends know. I know I've had some friends who have offered to bring juice boxes in their bags as well, so I'm not the only pack mule there. So once you kind of get to know people on campus, or if you're going with people that you do know, like don't be afraid to ask for help because most people are willing to kind of carry an extra granola bar for you, just in case one day you step on the one that you were going to eat or something like that. So just having the support around you as well. I was just going to ask, because I know one of the things that I've always struggled with is what kind of bag to carry. So since we're talking about all the stuff that we need to bring, do you have any recommendations on what to look for in a bag or what's worked for you?
So for like convenience, like I always kind of throw in like smaller stuff into like a cosmetic bag just because one, it's a little bit it's like easier to hide. But as I've gotten older, like I this isn't sponsored. I get a lot of stuff from Diabetic. Just because I really do like their cute little pouches and how everything's organized. So even if you're chaotic and kind of throwing everything in, it just kind of falls into place. But yeah, it's a good thing to acknowledge that, having diabetes, like you often have to like a lot of space in when it comes to traveling or even going to school for all your supplies. But it's a lot of trial and error too, because I find that like, with pump supplies, a lot of it it's a lot of packaging. So you kind of have to be smart with how you like get everything kind of fit like a puzzle into your bag.
It's interesting because you're mentioning what you can bring. Like sometimes you can ask your diabetes educators. We've got lots of stuff in our cupboards. Like I have these really cool zip bags that make it really easy. And they're almost like, it's not a Ziploc, but it's that kind of idea where you can just, and it's made of whatever has a little handle on it or something like that. So you can always ask your educator too if you're in person. Sometimes we have some stuff around. If you're saying, hey, how do I carry my supplies? Any ideas? Because sometimes we have that sponsored stuff, right? So we've got things from different companies that we can definitely share with anyone that needs. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I guess something else that we wanted to kind of ask you, and I feel like any university student can, or post-secondary in general, can attest to this, but scheduling is always very difficult, especially when your classes are kind of all over the place. And so are there any sort of strategies or things that you might suggest that could help with, keeping a balanced diet, especially when you're on campus or, throughout the semester?
Like a few months before I went to university, I became vegetarian as I was still trying to learn how to have like a balanced plate and a balanced meal while doing it was all very new to me. And so on campus, for me personally, there weren't a lot of vegetarian options. So I tended to stick to more like soups and chilies that had like lentils, beans, maybe some grain in them, and as well as veggies. And sometimes, they give you like a bun or crackers to go with the meal. But that was kind of like my go-to if I were to have like calf food, because everything else did have, meat in it. Because again, too, like I didn't feel compelled to buy like the little veggie packs because I'm like, well, I could pack that myself. And so one of the great things about going to school like in kind of a big city is that there are tons of places to eat off campus, like if you're nearby like a mall or like a strip of restaurants. So my go-to thing was to get something called like a Buddha bowl from Freshie. Like you can modify your carbs and your grains, source of protein and veggies. Like it was just so filling that like the portion was huge, so I could literally snack on it throughout the day or like eat it during like a 6 to 9 lecture, but also have it for lunch. So that was super convenient. And like I know that like for me, like I hated eating around other people, just because it's something you do get like a lot of like ignorant or misinformed comments about diabetes. So I always made sure like I made plans in advance and like I could look up the nutritional info so I could make like either an informed or like a well-intentioned, educated guess about how many carbs I was eating. And then also, like, if we wanted to celebrate completing like a really hard midterm and everyone was going out for ice cream or gelato, I made sure not to deprive myself of those treats as well, because it's important to participate in those celebratory things. So again, it's a little bit hard when you're like vegetarian, but it's not impossible. It's just a lot of trial and error.
Oh, thank you for that. And sorry, just on that note as well, the idea of not depriving yourself of like treats or anything like that. Was there anything that you did sort of in preparation for that? Like, did you let your friends know before, going out about certain restrictions and things like that?
Yeah, so like all my friends know that like I, food sensitivity wise, they know what's up. Anytime I meet anyone, usually one of the first 5 things I mention is that I have diabetes. It's just a thing. So like they're all my friends know, and are well informed, and so they also encourage me to like participate in like the celebratory things. So it was always a safe space with them.
That's great to hear. Ethan, how about yourself?
I think part of the challenge, I think, in the first few weeks of starting in a foreign environment, whether that be like university or even if you move somewhere, I think is always just figuring out what options are available. And that for me came with just trying different things throughout the first few weeks and figuring out what I liked and what I didn't like. McMaster has an app that you can use to kind of see which things are open at any given time, but most importantly, all the options that are available for you. And some restaurants have within the app like nutrition facts as well. So I guess before going there, what I did was kind of shortlist some things that were a bit healthier, and then I kind of tried those. But I think most importantly, it's kind of allowing yourself to try different things and seeing, I guess, pretty intently how your body responds to different things and what kind of may seem like it's something that you've eaten before might actually not be, because there's always some extra things that might be added or different ways of making things that might seem like you've had them often. I guess that's always the challenge as well. Yeah, so my biggest tip would be to, I guess, take inventory of what's available to you. It's definitely helpful, especially from a diabetes perspective, to stick to things that you know, but at the same time, part of the fun is trying new things. So I guess have that balance, and if it helps you to keep a journal or some sort of way of tracking how you're progressing when you're trying different things, I think that's a great strategy as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And Marsha, how
Yeah,
about
no,
yourself?
it's great to know what on campus I did. We always look at, like with some of the clients, we kind of get an idea, does the university have some of the nutrition facts information available? So it can be really helpful. Like I found some at Guelph and U of T and different places. Sometimes they're posting up, the nutrition information that can help you with your carb counting and what to put in your pump. So sometimes those menus, because they're large companies that go in, like Subway and different places, so it's a chance for you to look. And it can be really challenging. It is true with your dietary, like, depending on what kind of diet you're following, vegetarian, you're celiac, those can be challenges, and you may have to check in with campus nutrition to see how they can accommodate for you, because you want to be sure that they're going to have foods that you can have. Especially if you're working with their meal plan, you can do that ahead of time. That's good to do. And then, of course, being a dietitian, we're trying to find the balance, right? It's hard because very starchy choices sometimes at school, but there may be ways like to get in soups and stews, stir fries, like how to get your vegetables in. Salads, like sometimes they do really nice salad bars, so, keep your eye out for how to get vegetables. I mean, we don't want to not get vegetables. We want that fiber in your diet and the whole grains. You don't want to be constipated. I'd hate to say it, but it's still really important to get those in your diet, even though everything around there is sort of tempting you. And then maybe there's fruit you can pick up if you like fruit, or, you can take that along with you. Fruit's not, it can handle an apple or a banana can go into a bag if that's an alternative for you, or nuts and seeds and different things that you want. But you definitely want a source of carbohydrate along, especially if there is going to be, maybe you're treating a low, but you want to have a snack on hand if the day gets a little busier, like hustling around campus. Like, it's not like you're just walking down the hallway to your next class. Like, you might be going like right across campus, right? And you don't even think about that having an effect on blood sugar. But that extra walking, or you're taking stairs, sometimes it can really, you can kind of find out later, wow, that's more than I thought. But thank goodness for CGM, and hopefully you can keep your eye out for that. But it's nice to have some of those snacks on hand in case you're not going to get lunch on time. You see you're, dipping down, and you can sort of keep yourself balanced. And I do think, though, like with all this hustle and bustle school, you want to take a break, hopefully like at some point in your day, to get a group of friends together or meet up with someone, like to have a meal and sit down. I mean, maybe with home it's different because you've always got a dinner time or a lunch time, or maybe you didn't. But when you're at school, you might want to try to make that plan. Like, this could be a meeting time. It's really good to pause in your day and you have a moment with your food. I know, like, it's exciting and you're trying to get all your work done, but it's a chance to kind of sit back and take a moment as well. That's so important for your well-being, to get a break and to enjoy food and not feel like you're just like scarfing it down and trying to get on to the next thing. It's good to kind of take a break in your day is what I would suggest, just to kind of keep that in mind. It can't always be, but if you can, try to do that.
Thank you very much for that. Heather, do you have anything to add?
Just sort of building on that, sharing with friends, and Rav was talking about sort of going out for treats when your friends are going out for treats, or grabbing a slice of pizza with them. Just doing that education piece with them. And we did another webinar on this, which I won't get into too much detail of it. But just so they know that if you are going low, you're not going to die on the spot. Just letting them know what kind of support you need in that moment, so you don't have to be taking care of them instead of yourself. I know high alarms can be scary for people to hear too. So just doing that education piece around it for the people who are closest to you, so that they have that, they know how to help you when you need it, and you're not having to help them through whatever fears they may have while you're doing that dining together.
One other thing to add in, how it was so nice that people want to give that flexibility to say, I'm managing diabetes, and, this is how I do it. And, I've got to sometimes flexibility in my diet. I do enjoy like having gelato like everyone else, it's something I enjoy, and I just consider the amount, or, like there's different things that you have to consider, of course, but it's still something you enjoy, of course. You can have that flexibility in your diet. Just coming from the dietitian to say, I try to let people realize that there are different foods, and foods are for pleasure and enjoyment too. So I don't want to say that you wouldn't be, you'd be like banned from like, having some ice cream or something like that. No,
I like that. I like that way of explaining it as having flexibility in your diet, because when people hear diabetes, their first instinct is, oh, well, you can't. And I like sort of reframing it as Yeah, no, I have flexibility and I just have to sort of take into consideration these extra pieces of information. And I'm just wondering if you can all talk about some of the accommodations that are available to help you when you are on campus for being able to get what you need to eat when you need to eat it. So in class or in between classes, in the library, whatever it is, what accommodations are available.
Yeah, I think that's really key. Like you want to get that organized and try to get to here and let people know that that would be something that could be very helpful for you, especially, you know, where there's times when you're going to need food, you know, available, you know, when you're in an exam or you're in class, like you still need to have like a grant or you're going to need to have something to cover you so that you have to take that approach. And it is a bit of advocacy on your part, and that's good to learn. Like it's a skill that you want to take on, and it's really healthy for you to say that too about yourself, you know, so that I'm sure that you're getting meal breaks. Sometimes it can also help to, you know, some people want to rent a fridge or have a mini fridge in the room. Just sometimes you're up late studying and nothing's open. Although Uber Eats, I'm sure, covers a lot of that. But it's nice to know that if you have something at home, you may pick more like some good healthy snacks, like applesauce or like different things in yogurts and different things that you could put in your fridge that kind of are stocked up there for you if you want, like veggies and hummus, or I don't know what it is that you like, but from, you know, trying to get in other food groups, can have that in your fridge. But check the expiry dates, you know, check in there to make sure there's nothing growing, you know, every once in a while, because you don't want to just leave it and then come back and say, oh, you know. So you got to check that out. But I think also, you know, I think there's more accommodations that are available, and it may even be for timing, like whether, gosh, if it was like you're battling a high or you're battling a low and you're trying to write, you know, or get your work done and you need that accommodation, right? Like, what can you do? Like, this is like the timing of the exam and you need to be able to still try to do this, or if you want to speak to someone about that. But I think it's really important that you understand these things can come up, and you need an avenue, you know, to get support, you know, so you can handle it.
Thanks, Marsha. Yeah, Rav?
So when I first went to the University of Ottawa, I was lucky enough to be able to get a mini fridge in my bedroom because it was an apartment style residence. And so on like the form that I had filled out, I was very clear about, you know, I have diabetes, I need certain accommodations, and, you know, luckily those were honored because it really helped for me to get comfortable almost within my like diabetes identity to keep my insulin in my room. Because again, there are certain things I'm comfortable sharing with others, more so about my experience, but like, don't touch my stuff, right? Like I don't ever want my insulin to be compromised. So that was a boundary I have to respect for myself. And depending on like my class size, so if I had a really small class that was more intimate, I always felt more comfortable to kind of just like tell the prof or the TA to like, hey, this is a situation. If I have to step out of class for a bit, like I'll give you a thumbs up. I just need a break to either, you know, like have my juice in like a cool hallway, or something along those lines. And they always respected that. I'll be honest, I didn't take advantage of getting extra time on exams or other accommodations like that, because at the time it just felt like another thing to do. And I was already trying to like prove to my parents that like I could manage my diabetes. Like I was like the superhero. But I was so overwhelmed with everything going on. So now when I look back on it, if I had a chance to go back to my undergrad now, I would approach things so differently. So this is where I really do encourage everyone to look at DHF's transition guide to see what your school has to offer in terms of accessibility services and whom to contact. Because way back in the transition guide's infancy, that's when it came out when I went to school. That was really handy for me to know what the nearest hospital was, because I did my pump malfunctioned and I needed to know, okay, where was the nearest endo clinic? So luckily that information was there, and that's actually what, and I'm not being dramatic when I say this, like actually ended up saving my life. So
It also has a really good information about your rights, because sometimes asking for those accommodations, if you're not sure what you're entitled to and what your rights are, having that in your back pocket for the conversation, just in case someone gives you any pushback. It's great to do that research ahead of time. And just sort of building on what Rav had said, just having those accommodations in place, you may never need to treat a low during an exam during your 4 years at school, but just having it there in case is huge. Ethan, were there any accommodations that you asked for or that you found helpful or that you encourage people to look into?
Firstly, I just wanted to touch on the fridge aspect. That was something that was available for everyone, regardless of whether you had an accommodation or not. It wasn't something that was provided automatically, but you could very easily, like they paired up with a company, I think Coldex or something, and they provided like relatively small mini fridges for people in their room. So that was enough for me. I didn't need to go further than that. I just needed to make sure there was enough space, I guess, for my stuff, and there definitely was. So that was great. In terms of accommodations, I think the biggest thing was just making sure they were aware that the technology of the pump was like vital and not a source of cheating. Maybe if it was a math exam, I could have a number or something in there that might make them think I was cheating, but it was never really something that they looked into too much, because they kind of knew that that was a topic that is very personal, and so they did I think a good job of not going too much into it. But regardless, I still had to go through the formal process of kind of making sure that that technology was allowed, because there were multiple times where if I was writing an exam and not everyone in the room that was invigilating had read my file specifically, they thought that I was on my phone, perhaps. So they came over and just asked, like, is that your phone? And I just had to explain to them, but it wasn't a big deal. I just needed to make sure that that was kind of through. And that was a relatively easy process. And also, I requested to have juice with me during the exam, which is usually not allowed. I think it's just water. And I didn't bring snacks, not because I wouldn't have liked to, but they're a bit disruptive. So I kind of was more comfortable just not drawing that much attention to myself and just focusing on having maybe juice or some sort of Gatorade that wasn't too loud, and could get the job done just as easily. I don't think there were any other accommodations. Those are the main two.
I'm wondering for because a lot of sort of CGMs and stuff go through your phone now, so it's not like 10 years ago where you had the separate device that you could tell was not a phone. Are there certain things that you had to do during your exams or during class so that like did you have to leave your phone on your desk or something so they knew that it wasn't being used, or were there any, they're not really loopholes, but any sort of specific ways you had to have your phone in the class or in the exam?
Mhm. So I'm lucky that my system, so I'm on the tandem pump with the Dexcom. So the glucose value can be read on the pump, my phone, and also like pretty incredibly with my Apple Watch as well. And so I have no problem just using the pump, so I didn't need to uh, do anything with my phone. Like that was a way, and I think like they were pretty serious on that. They said like if you can check your sugars in a manner that doesn't involve your phone or Apple Watch, that would be definitely preferred, because I think there's a few more loops that you have to jump through to make sure that you can have your phone with you, because that does have access to the internet. So I was good to have just my pump because the values of my sugars were on there.
Start talking to your doctors now to get those letters so that you have them ready to go. I know some schools require more letters than others, so just check in with the accessibility office. They're open through the summer to make sure you have all that documentation you need so you don't have to go back and forth once you're starting school. Thank you, everybody.
This next question here is more so specific towards you, Rav and Ethan. So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in terms of like what food choices you have around you. But did you find that maybe there are any sort of like rules or restrictions that you've come across, especially when like bringing food back to your dorms or anything like that? Did you find that like there was a lot of variety, in terms of like restaurants near your campus?
For me, like vegetarian wise, yeah, like as soon as you kind of stepped out of the like campus, like calf food, like yeah, it's basically a gold mine, right? Again, it's a lot of trial and error to see like what sits well with your stomach, what's going to make you too tired for your afternoon or evening lecture. But again, like we touched upon earlier, it's just, about trying new things and maintaining that balance with sticking with what you're comfortable with. In terms of any rules or restrictions, I never, again, this was, almost 10 years ago when I would bring food back to like my room, that was completely fine and acceptable across campus. But then, you would often hear like, don't bring, food or try to eat during class, especially if you're in the front row. But again, it's about like advocating for yourself and making sure that, your peers and your prof are aware that like, hey, this is a situation. I need to have food if it's like necessary. But again, it's they always joke like, oh, don't bring like like a 3-course meal out, and it's like not in this heavy backpack. I can't. So it's all doable. But yeah, there weren't any like I'm sure that's changed since COVID. But maybe Ethan can speak to this a little bit better.
Um, I don't think I've run into any particular um, situations where the food choices I've brought were of any kind of issue. At Mac, there aren't really any rules as to the types of food you can bring. I think the most important thing is that regardless of the meal that you decide to bring, obviously eating in class, if it's disruptive, that's I think the biggest issue. So I guess that'd be things that are messy or loud, or that perhaps like if there's a case of an allergy around you, like perhaps that caused a little bit of like distress in other students that are around you. So generally, I keep anything I eat when I'm in class like to very minimal, and that just kind of it helps you focus more if you're not focused so much on the meal and more on like the class. So I guess from a personal standpoint, I find it's better for my focus to just keep like the snacking to like a very minimum. If that's like a small container or something like usually dry. So that's something that I don't need to worry about grabbing napkins for or something like that. But I'll save like my major meals for outside of class, and unless there's really an emergency or I haven't had time to eat because of meetings and whatnot. But yeah, I think like if you're oftentimes you can tell whether or not something's going to be disruptive or and I think that's very much to the discretion of the eater. So at Mac though, like just speaking from my experience, there haven't really been any rules about that. And I know that now that COVID is essentially like restrictions have lifted, especially at Mac, rules around eating inside in certain areas are also like lifted as well. So
Did either of you ever find issues with like the school cafeterias or snack bars kind of closing? Like their hours, I know can be a little bit all over the place depending on the building you're in or campus. So did you ever find that to be sort of like a barrier?
so that app that I was mentioning earlier had hours on it, and I wish I knew about this app sooner. It was almost at the end of first term, so like around December. So I'd gone the first few months trying to figure out and learn the hours. And I figured out that they were kind of accessible on the phone, which is a big help, especially when the hours change on the weekends. So I think at Mac there are a few food spots that have weirder hours. They kind of close around like a 4 or 5. So that's a bit tough because no one really eats dinner that early, or if it's not convenient to grab food at that time. So I think just making use of the online schedule definitely helped me. And I would also plan ahead. If there's a specific area that I really liked eating at, I would tend to know the hours a bit better and go there when I knew that they were open. And I guess on a weekly basis, you kind of figure out the patterns of where you can eat at what time. Yeah, I think that's that's mainly it. Each place will have different hours, so just kind of figuring out what works for you depending on your schedule.
Yeah, so I often ran into places on campus being closed like kind of like after 4:30, and because my program was a lot smaller, it was somehow more convenient to kind of have our classes in the like towards the end of the day, or like we would finish like just kind of at like the 4 or 5 o'clock mark. So that was kind of frustrating, but again, I had the wonderful advantage of going to school in Toronto, so if I needed to get food for whatever reason, I could just always step to like my trusted freshie or another spot that could kind of like accommodate what I was looking for. But yeah, again, like I don't know if TMU or other universities have an app like McMaster, which like is such a fantastic idea to kind of let you know kind of like what's open, what's not, what's available. That's definitely something that should be implemented everywhere.
I think another thing, if you're not going to school in sort of a bigger city, is to find out what your meal plan options are. So I went to Trent many, many years ago, and there were kind of two options we could have. There was the cafeteria food where you could get like a certain set number of meals per week. And then there was kind of like a debit card system where you could use it at the cafeteria. You could also use it sort of at their sort of food court type area. So just find out what your meal plan options are. If you got the cafeteria one, the hours, like they were closed on Sundays. So you kind of had to figure out how to fend for yourself on Sundays. And also sort of stock your fridge with stuff from the grocery store if you are on campus, just so you have that backup for middle of the night, depending on where you are. But definitely look into your meal plan options and sort of take into consideration what you need, when you need to eat, and what works best for you. The last question we have, we've kind of covered through all the other conversations, but just kind of give everyone a chance to share any lingering tips that you want to make sure that people know and kind of have in the back of their mind for when they're preparing for school.
So again, the most important thing is to know what services are available around you. So be it, again, pharmacies, understanding how prescriptions can be transferred from one location to another. I'm with Shoppers, so that's a little bit easier. Knowing what walk-ins are nearby in case you are sick or need a prescription for something urgently. And another thing too is to, especially if you're moving into residence, and again, even if you are commuting, bring backups of like most, if not all of your supplies. It's so much better to be prepared than not. Take this from someone who's had multiple pump failures while living away from home and during a bachelorette. Because again, the time that you need your backups and they're not there, you're just sitting there mad at yourself. And also, like when you're going home, it's okay to have some supplies back at home as well, just to prevent you from lugging around like a suitcase of supplies everywhere. And again, even though I've had like diabetes for 25 years, I still take advantage of carb counting classes or other types of training sessions that my clinic hosts. It's a great refresher to kind of keep you on track and to maybe learn a new tip or trick from the educator themselves or from anyone else that's attending. And again, cooking is daunting, meal planning is daunting. It's the summer before going into like university or college is that time to really experiment and to find a routine that works for you. So I do encourage everyone to kind of get a little bit more comfortable in the kitchen. I can say when I was 18, I definitely was a hot mess in the kitchen, and now I'm kind of just no, I'm a little bit more advanced. So I'm glad that I've been on this journey, but if I could go back, I would definitely try to get more familiar in the kitchen and more comfortable making meals for myself. So again, not to plug transition in the kitchen, but I will, because those recipes are not too time consuming and don't require too many ingredients. So that is something to kind of help you get over any potential fears you may have in the kitchen.
And it's available for download, or you can buy a copy if you'd rather have the hard copy in your kitchen. Have a hard copy in the kitchen that could get messy, and then a hard copy you can kind of show off on your coffee table. The options are there. Ethan, what about yourself? Anything else that you think is important to get out there?
I think being aware of the pharmacies that are available, there's definitely ones on campus, or there should be. I know there is at Mac, and there's also a Shoppers that's right across the street. And those are, for, I guess, from an insulin standpoint, but also like a source of groceries. It's great to just know where everything is. And then I think if you're able to get a tour of your university, and I think specifically keep an eye out now that you've come to this webinar on the food, like what's available, maybe have a chat with some upper years, and just kind of get a sense of things. It could help you to a few months before get an idea of some of the things that are available to you, and that might make the first few weeks less daunting to try to figure everything out. And yeah, I think if you have the opportunity to do some cooking, I think especially if you're off campus, I know sometimes in res it can be hard because of just the layout of the building. But if you are able to do some, it always helps, and you can be in full control over what you're putting in your body, and also keep your meals a bit more consistent if you're making them. Yeah, I think those would be my biggest two tips. So just to get an idea of the where everything is, like the geographics of your campus, and then also maybe if you can try to get a tour, and then also try to figure out things you can make at home. That always adds a little bit of healthy options to your weekly kind of go-tos.
I also just kind of want to pull out, we said, Ethan, about connecting with upper year students. A lot of campuses have diabetes clubs. I know Ethan's a member of the one at McMaster. Everyone in those clubs knows where everything is and sort of has figured out. Oh, I think I paused for a minute there, but people in the clubs know where stuff is. They figure out the loopholes and they can help guide you through it as well. So if you're not able to get a tour before, connect with those resources when you get to campus. And Marsha, I'll send it over to you for the final words of wisdom about eating right on campus.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have covered so many wonderful tips and, and from firsthand experiences. So I think that's really great. And as a diabetes educator and dietitian, we're always here trying to support that transition when it happens. And the planning and preparation, ahead of time, it does take thinking ahead, but you might have some recipes at home. Like if you feel you want to do some cooking, you've done maybe some recipes with your family at home that you really enjoy. You can try to get those because you're familiar. Sometimes it's just like printing them out or saving them to an app or something just so you have them on hand and that's an easy one to go to. The other thing we didn't really talk about, but it does fall into the food category, is sort of sick day management. That's something you really want to kind of think about too, because, if there's times where you're not so well, like you want to be having some of those liquidy foods on hand that are easy to digest and will kind of do, the chicken noodle soup or crackers and the plain foods, just as a backup for you because you want to stay really nice and hydrated, and have things that are easy to digest but actually have carbohydrate too. You're not going to be without it, even when you're doing a 6-day management. And there's lots to consider too, and you can call on your team if that happens, just so you can reach out to your team if you need a quick call. We're always around to do like a phone call. That's the great thing about the remote. Like if you're wanting your dietitian or nurse to kind of go through something, if you're not sure how to manage it, we can kind of help you with that during that time. Or your endocrinologist, of course, you can always call and email if that's someone who you're really connected to. They can help you out, your family doctor as well too. But sometimes it's good to think about that as well. But I think you guys have done an amazing job of covering it all and trying to think about balance. It's great to hear.
So thank you, Marsha. And I would just say, as a mom, asking your mom or your dad to help cook some of your favorite meals, they will love the extra time in the kitchen, and you will learn the old family tricks to make sure that when you are away at school, it tastes as good at home, because that can kind of be a little bit tricky to accomplish. So I want to say a huge thank you to Marsha and Rav and Ethan for joining us today and sharing all your tips and wisdom and experiences. So just again, thank you so much for your time today.